Good evening, everybody. Breaking news tonight. The Clinton-Obama State Department telling the American people, Judicial Watch and President Trump all to go to hell. The State Department admitting in a court hearing it has not processed even half of Hillary Clinton's 72,000 emails that the FBI recovered last year and a federal court judge has ordered be produced. That means it could be at least 3 more years before the public would see more than 40,000 pages of email from Clinton's tenure as Secretary of State. The only reason we know that tonight is because the legal public interest organization Judicial Watch sued for those documents 2 years ago. That's right, 2 years ago, and the State Department has yet to produce even half of those emails. We'll be talking with Judicial Watch's Director of Investigations, Chris Farrell, tonight about the mammoth corruption in our nation's capital. Also tonight, there is no explanation for why the Justice Department has not lifted a gag order against an FBI informant who has provided testimony and evidence against the Clintons in collusion with Russia. The informant says he witnessed how Russians sought to win favor with Bill and Hillary Clinton and to influence decisions within the Obama administration. Tonight, we'll talk with the FBI informant's attorney, Victoria Tunzing. And the House Oversight Committee is now looking into the Obama-era Uranium One deal that resulted in a massive payoff to the Clintons and their foundation and the transfer of 20% of U.S. uranium to the Russians. We'll talk with Congressman Jim Jordan about Congress's efforts to uncover the vast corruption of the Clintons and that of course, the D.C. swamp. Our top story tonight, shocking allegations that Republican leadership aligned themselves with Democrats and the deep state and blocked investigation into the Clinton money trail leading to the 2010 Uranium One deal. Bill and Hillary Clinton are now implicated in what appears to be a quid pro quo deal that led to Russian ownership of a fifth of U.S. uranium. House Oversight Committee member Ron DeSantis talked about the calls for an investigation that fell on deaf ears.
Last Congress, we and the Oversight Committee wanted to investigate the foundation and all the other payments involving the Clintons, and we were not allowed to do that by the leadership in the House for whatever reason. Well, now I think that this information is so explosive that there's no way you can justify not getting all the information on this. Remember, we have 3 Russia investigations about Trump in Russia. There's not been any evidence of collusion. Here, there's a lot of evidence, and this stuff needs to be vetted thoroughly.
The House Oversight Committee is now finally investigating the Uranium One deal. It follows the Senate Judiciary Committee that launched an investigation last week after reports revealed the FBI and evidence from an informant that Russian nuclear officials were involved in fraudulent dealings in 2009 before the uranium deal was approved. Congressman DeSantis is calling for the Justice Department to now remove that non-disclosure agreement that prevents the former FBI informant from testifying about the bribery scheme before Congress. Attorney General Loretta Lynch's Department of Justice blocking the informant from testifying last year, threatening criminal action against him if he were to do so. My first guest tonight is the attorney for the FBI informant at the center of the Uranium One scandal, and joining us tonight is Victoria Tunzing, founding partner of the DeGenova and Tunzing law firm. And Victoria also, of course, the former Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Criminal Division of the Justice Department in the Reagan administration. Victoria, it is great to see you again. And
good to be here, Lou. And God bless Ron DeSantis, for goodness sakes. You think they're going to learn how to govern?
He kicked over this particular can and sounded the alarm. And it's just extraordinary that the state, before we even get to the investigation, that we learned that the Republican leadership was blocking that investigation a year ago.
Hey, Lou, they did that to me in Benghazi also.
Exactly.
They were quashing that investigation.
So we are again. Is that speaking? I'm going to ask for a judgment here. Trey Gowdy is now the head of oversight. Why is he not doing something? He was the head of various committees, including Benghazi, that produced absolutely nothing in the way of concrete or results or resolution.
Well, we're glad that Ron DeSantis is doing it because he's a former federal prosecutor, and he's a go-getter on this. I think he'll do a great job. Let's
turn to your informant and the gag order that prevents him from going before Congress. Are you surprised that the Trump Justice Department has not lifted that gag order?
Well, I did not go to them, Lou. I decided when I got the case, and that was only a few weeks ago, that the best person to speak would be the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I think he has more authority in his requests than I do. So that was my strategy, to go and have Chairman Grassley, and God bless him too, because he's been interested in this issue for a couple of years now. So he immediately issued a letter to the Justice Department and to me at the same time, asking to interview my client. So he gave Attorney General Sessions until November 1st to cough up that NDA. You know, we don't even have a copy of it, so we don't know what it says.
But your informant presumably does have a very good understanding of what it prohibits him from doing.
He does, because a year ago, when he had brought a civil suit, his then lawyer was told by the Loretta Lynch Justice Department, if he goes forward and he does not dismiss the case, his reputation and liberty are in jeopardy. And when the Justice Department talks to me about my liberty, I figure that's a prosecution.
And extraordinarily, this is a gag order, a non-disclosure that has a criminal penalty.
No.
For breaching it?
That's what the Justice Department said. Lou, I have never heard of a criminal penalty for an NDA. Not in all my years of practicing law, and it's been a good many. Also, if it does, and it is unconstitutional and it's invalid, if it prohibits my client from giving information to the legislature. The executive cannot say to people, hey, you can't give information to another body of the government. So it's either invalid or it doesn't say what they said that it said.
So where are we? It seems like the most expedient measure would be, you're the attorney and one of the country's best, but at this point, why not simply get a decision from the Attorney General to lift that gag order and move ahead with these committees? I mean, we have, as Congressman DeSantis pointed out, 3 committees investigating the Trump administration without an iota of evidence or a definition of a crime. In the case of the special counsel, the Senate and House Intelligence Committees alongside them, carrying on an investigation now. In total, cumulatively, we're talking about over a year and a half of investigation without producing even, as Senator Richard Byrd, the chairman of Senate Intelligence, put it, even preliminary findings, because there are none. Why in the world can we not have just a straightforward answer, the American people, one time from their government? This is what's going on, and these are the people responsible.
Call the Justice Department and ask them if they're going to comply. Of course I do. Of course I do.
I think we can consider this a phone call right here.
Good.
With pictures.
Yes. Well, you know, let me tell you, for some time now, since Peter Schweizer's great book, Clinton Cash, we have had what I call the equivalent of the Menendez case. In the Menendez trial, criminal trial, it's that Senator Menendez had all kinds of authority to carry out things for people, and he had a doctor friend who gave him all kinds of goodies. That's what they went to trial on, and the prosecution is allowing the jury to decide whether there was criminal intent. We already have that for the Clintons. Think about it. We already know that Bill Clinton got $500 grand for a 1-hour speech, not my fees, maybe yours. And that's just 4 months before this deal went through with CFIUS, and that the foundation got tens of millions of dollars, specifically.
Well, $145 million in point of fact.
And the director.
$145 million from one deal. Now, that's quite a quid or quo, however you want to construct it.
And the deal went through. And then there were other things that will come out that the State Department did for the people involved, visas and allowing them to enter the United States and all that kind of stuff as this goes on. But we know the deal went through. There's a quid and there's a quo, you know, and what my client does is just put a little more meat on those bones.
A little more or substantively more? How, wait for us, if you will, weigh for us the impact of what he does know and what you may have learned from him.
Well, I don't want to get in the business of my violating an NDA.
No, I wouldn't
ask
you for any specific.
So, but I think it's quite significant. He can tell what all the Russians were talking about during the time that all these bribery payments were made.
At what point does the national interest become so evident to even the swamp in D.C. that they have to make rational decisions about what the Congress can learn and the American people must know?
Lou, I was called a few days ago by someone from CNN just asking me some questions, and I said, oh, don't you want me to go on and discuss it? We'll get back to you. I mean, we can't even get anybody else but Fox to do the story.
And America should never forget that. Victoria?
Never.
It's good to see you again, and we thank you very much, and we look forward to a successful and quick resolution. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Victoria Tonsing. We'll talk with Congressman Jim Jordan, who sits on the House Oversight Committee, about the Clinton collusion scandal momentarily and what in the world it takes to lift a gag order. Is this America, really? Where we can't find out what is happening anywhere in this government? Are you kidding me? We're coming right back. Much more straight ahead. Stay with us. Congress is demanding the Justice Department lift the gag order from the Obama administration placed on an FBI informant who helped uncover a Russian bribery scheme.
This informant wants to tell his story, but he's currently under a non-disclosure agreement that was signed with the Eric Holder Justice Department.
And new reports, the Air Force is preparing to put B-52 bombers on high alert for the first time since the end of the Cold War. We take up rising tensions with North Korea and much more. Straight ahead, stay with us. We'll be right back. New reports tonight that Russia launched an all-out effort to win access to Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State. The Hill reporting that federal agents observed a Russian spy posing as an accountant move closer to Clinton's inner circle before the spy was arrested and deported around 2010. Other efforts in plain view, such as when a Kremlin-linked bank paid Bill Clinton $500,000 for a single speech, just about double his going rate at that time. Joining us tonight is Congressman Jim Jordan. He serves on both the Judiciary and the Oversight Committee. He's also a member of the House Freedom Caucus. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Good to be with you.
We learned from your colleague, Congressman DeSantis, that House Oversight has begun an investigation into these matters, Russian bribery, efforts to exploit Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
It was an unheralded beginning to an investigation. Is the investigation actually underway?
I think you're going to see real movement in both the Oversight and Judiciary Committees as we move forward. This is definitely something we need to investigate. But also, Lou, never forget, the Judiciary Committee Republicans sent to the Justice Department 3 months ago now a letter saying, let's have a special counsel to look into this Uranium One issue, to Clinton, to Comey, to Lynch, all the things that took place. We sent that 3 months ago, and yet no response from the Justice Department. And when we met with people from the Justice Department, I asked them just a few weeks ago, when will you respond to that? Have you made a decision? And if not, when will you make a decision? And their answer was, we don't know, and we don't know. So that's what we're getting from the Justice Department. And this is a Republican Justice Department. So let's start giving us some answers to some pretty important questions. And let's look at this special counsel issue.
You know, I think you're certainly right. This is a Republican Justice Department, but it is peopled by those who fly other flags. I mean, whether we're talking about Rosenstein, whether we're talking about the special counsel himself, Robert Mueller, Andrew McCabe, the number 2.
Yep.
I mean, the list goes on. And we can't even get a response from a Republican Attorney General to a Republican House Oversight Committee chair?
Right. They won't give us a response, and yet when I asked them the question, when will you make a decision to give us one, they said, I don't know, which is a response in and of itself. So that is the problem. And when you think about 2016, I always come back to this. Think about some of the things that happened in we got this whole investigation into possible Russian influence. But we know the Obama Justice Department tried to influence the election because, remember, Loretta Lynch told James Comey, call the Clinton investigation a matter, not an investigation, and he did it. Loretta Lynch, one day before the Benghazi report comes out, 3 days before Secretary Clinton's scheduled to be interviewed, meets with Bill Clinton on the tarmac in Phoenix. And when it's discovered that she had that meeting and she's corresponding with Justice Department public relations people, in the email, she doesn't use her real name. She uses the name Elizabeth Carlisle. Now, again, if you're just talking golf and grandkids, you probably can use your real name. You probably don't need to use a fake name. So these are the kind of questions that need exploration, need to be looked into, because the Obama Justice Department was certainly trying to influence the election in 2016, and yet all the focus is on possible Russian influence in the electoral process. It's ridiculous. So let's get some investigations moving.
Is it a fair statement to say that even the Trump Justice Department is still peopled principally at the top by Obama holdovers, and that it is an extraordinarily difficult task for Attorney General Sessions to execute Trump policy?
Yes, and yes again. I mean, that is exactly what's happened, and just by the fact we asked the question, we know what the answer is to it. That's what's going on there, and that is a problem. That's not getting to the... I say this all the time. There are lots of things that make Americans mad, but a couple in particular. And one of those is when they perceive there's a double standard. When they perceive there is one set of rules for you and I and regular people, but a different set if you're part of the politically connected class like Clinton and Comey and Lynch and all this in the Clinton Foundation. That drives Americans, and appropriately so, drives them crazy. So all that means we should be focused on getting these investigations moving and getting to the truth.
The uranium that was transferred to the Russians. Why would the United States government, CFIUS or any other entity, but CFIUS itself, which is charged specifically with protecting American assets and precious assets, why would they sell uranium for any price?
That's the question, and that's why we need to investigate, as Congressman DeSantis has pointed out, why we need to move forward and figure out what went on here. But one of the answers that sort of pops in your mind that may be a possibility is because there was pressure from people high in our government at the State Department, like the Secretary. Maybe that's what took place. We don't know that. All the more reason why we need to investigate and figure it out.
You know, I was just sitting and I've got two images that stuck in my mind here tonight on this issue. One is President Bill Clinton at Vladimir Putin's private Dachau in Moscow, having a discussion about all of the things that he wanted to talk with a list of 15 Russians that he was told very gently and suggested that he not. And we also have President Obama leaning over to Medvedev and tell Vladimir I can be more flexible after the election.
After the election, right.
That is more a priori evidence of collusion, those two images, than anything that Donald Trump or anyone who works for him committed.
No, well said. And yet, like you say, we got this whole Mueller special counsel looking into it, and yet we can't even get an answer from our Justice Department, from members of the House Republican members on the House Judiciary Committee. We can't even get an answer to the letter we sent 3 months ago asking for a special counsel to look into the very things you've highlighted on your show. That's the problem. So let's get an answer for that, but more importantly, let's start on, this is the Judiciary Committee. This is the committee charged with defending the Constitution, those core principles, and equal treatment under the law. Let's get moving forward. I feel like we've had great conversations with our chairman, and hopefully we're going to be moving sometime here real soon.
Chairman Bob Goodlatte, he has stood up in every instance I've been aware, as you always do. I've got to ask this last concluding question, and that is, why in the hell has your leadership denied you on the Oversight Committee, on the Judiciary Committee, an investigation into these issues? How could they do that?
I think, again, I think things are moving in the right direction. We've been raising these issues, just like Congressman DeSantis was talking about.
This doesn't sound like you're going to answer me, Congressman.
No, but I think it is going to happen, and I think it's going to happen soon because we're pushing. I mean, there's lots of Freedom Caucus members on the Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee, and lots of other conservative members who are pushing for these things to happen. We got good chairmen on both, and I think we're going to move in the right direction.
Was the leadership the speaker, or was the leadership the chairman, or both?
Well, I don't know that, but we've had conversation with the chairman.
Okay. Congressman Jim Jordan.
You bet.
I'll pretend that was the question I was going to ask.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being with us. Congressman Jim Jordan. Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. Do you believe the Uranium One informant should be allowed to tell Congress and the American people what he knows exactly about the Obama-Clinton collusion with Russia scandal? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. We'll have the results for you here tomorrow night. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs, like me on Facebook, and follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. On Wall Street, stocks closed lower. The Dow down 55 points, the S&P down 10, the Nasdaq down 42. Volume on the big board over 3.1 billion shares. GE tumbling more than 6% today. That's the worst day since 2006. Fears of a dividend cut. GE shares have fallen more than 40%. After the former chairman, Jeff Immelt, resigned. A reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast, on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, the Clinton-Obama State Department blocking the release of Hillary Clinton's emails, refusing to let an FBI informant speak to Congress. Is this an American government we're talking about, or is it Soviet government we're talking about? We take that up with Judicial Watch's Chris Farrell. By the way, without Judicial Watch, I don't know what we would know, but I can tell you this. It would be substantively, measurably far less. And that should scare all of us. We'll take all of that and more up here next. The legal public interest organization Judicial Watch has done more than any lawmaker or any congressional committee over the past 2 years to inform the public about the widening Obama, Clinton, Russia collusion scandal. And it is because of their efforts that the FBI now says it has recovered 72,000 more pages of Clinton records. The State Department, however, says they have failed to produce even half of those 72,000 emails and pages in response to a federal court order. They have told, the State Department has, the judiciary to go to hell. They have told the American people to go to hell. And anyone who expects the State Department to act like any part of the U.S. government is going to be sorely frustrated. Only a handful of those emails have been made public, and at the current rate under federal court order, the entire trove of Clinton records won't be fully available for release until 2020. That passes for American law and order. Joining me now, oh yes, and State Department integrity. Joining us, Chris Farrell. He's the Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch. Chris, first, congratulations. I'm always delighted when I can say that to you and Judicial Watch, because it means the American people are going to learn something that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Thanks.
You're in Little Rock, Arkansas tonight.
I am.
Well, let me ask first, before we get to all of the other intrigue tonight, what are you doing in Little Rock?
I'm spending some time at the National Archives at the Clinton Library. I think this is something like my 14th or 15th visit to Little Rock over the last 17 years. It's just it's a demonstration of our commitment to following through. We never quit, we never go away, we never give up. And so today I was looking through some old, believe it or not, Hillary Healthcare Task Force records.
Oh my goodness.
And a couple of interesting nuggets. I think one was the absolute state of panic and despair in the Clinton White House in May of '93. Frankly, the language, and I'll send it to your staff. You can look at the document tonight. The document talks about a state of despair and anxiety and complete confusion that actually pales in respect to all the hysteria over the Trump administration. It's quite interesting what happens when a new administration comes in.
You know, because I was there, as the saying goes. I know I look much too young, Chris, to have been covering national politics at that time, but people forget that entire process, the Health Security Act of 1993, it was the famous Clinton 2-for-1 deal where Hillary would run health care. In May, that's when they discovered that there might be a little problem with the whole contraption. And the media was feasting on what was calamity for the Clintons at that time. The secrecy that they built everything around. There weren't a big committee. They weren't in regular order, as they say in those days, and they weren't wide open and transparent, despite their revisionist history. It was secrets and concealment and deception, and ultimately doom for the Health Security Act of 93.
That's why I'm here today.
Well, you want to share a nugget, or you're going to save that one for another night?
I'll send your staff the nugget, but that's the level of confusion and the memo that I came across today it's stunning.
Well, I can't wait to see the note and to see what you've come upon. I've got to get your ideas. We talked with Victoria Tunzing earlier tonight, representing the FBI informant who now is under a gag order. It's the darndest gag order that she says she's ever heard of, purporting to have criminal penalties for violation of it and a refusal to allow him to testify to the United States Congress. Your thoughts?
This is what I've said all along, is that these congressional investigations have their place and their time, but the level of criminality we're talking about now and the national security threat that we're talking about now, you know, Attorney General Sessions, call your office, right? We need grand juries and indictments. We need prosecutions, not congressional hearings. If the congressional hearings come along after the fact to look at the systemic problems and the larger constitutional questions, that's great. But the matters we're dealing with are so serious, we have got to see people indicted and put on trial. We need findings of fact from courts, not opinions from politicians. And
we've got about 40 seconds, Chris. Is it your judgment that the special counsel enlarging his investigation to include the Podesta firm and John Podesta's brother, that amounts to anything, or is that a shiny object? Very quickly, if we.
Yeah, it's good that they're looking